Imagine the terror of a real-life boogeyman whose brutal rampage was so shocking it inspired one of the most famous horror movies of all time.
Tonight, we unmask the chilling truth behind the Gainesville Ripper, the real-life Ghostface.
Good evening and welcome. We're about to explore a story that ripped through the heart of a quiet Florida college town. It left behind a trail of unspeakable horror and forever changed the landscape of fear in America.
The case of Daniel Rowling, better known as the Gainesville Ripper, is one that resonates far beyond the headlines of 1990. It's a narrative of escalating violence, profound psychological darkness, and yes, a killer whose monstrous acts would disturbingly inspire one of the most iconic horror franchises of our time.
So, before the fictional terror of Ghostface haunted the big screen, a very real phantom stalked the streets of Gainesville, Florida. But to understand the true horror he unleashed, we really have to look into the disturbed origins of the man himself. Where did this all begin?
Daniel Rowling's life began on May 26, 1954, in Shreveport, Louisiana. But it was anything but idyllic. Born to James and Claudia Rowling, his childhood was a brutal crucible of abuse. His father, James Rowling, was a deeply disturbed and physically abusive man. He subjected young Danny to relentless torment.
This wasn't just discipline, it was outright terror. James Rowling instilled a profound fear in his son, controlling every aspect of his life with an iron fist and frequent violent beatings. It's chilling to consider how that early exposure to extreme violence could set the stage. What does the research tell us about this specific link between profound childhood trauma and later violence like Rowling's?
While such abuse doesn't predict violence for everyone, it certainly establishes a brutal pattern. It deeply influences a person's psychological development. For Rowling, as he grew, so did his rap sheet. Through the 1970s and 80s, he amassed a lengthy criminal record: theft, robbery, sexual assault.
A clear pattern of escalating violent behavior then.
Exactly. It saw him cycling in and out of various prison facilities across Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana. He simply couldn't stay on the right side of the law.
And the violence within his family, it came to a head on November 4th, 1989. In a shocking act of aggression that truly marked a point of no return, Rowling confronted his father, James, and shot him, leaving James Rowling permanently blinded. Daniel, now a fugitive, fled Louisiana.
On the run, Rowling's criminal spree continued to intensify. By May of 1990, just months before Gainesville, he was involved in a particularly heinous crime back in Shreveport. Crucially, he was linked to the brutal Grissom family murders in November of 1989, just days after shooting his father.
He wasn't tried for those at the time, correct?
No, he only confessed years later, before his execution. It was a horrific triple homicide involving Tom Grissom, his 24-year-old daughter Julie, and his 8-year-old son Sean.
It sounds like his violence was not only escalating but also spreading geographically. During his time on the run before arriving in Florida, we also know he worked briefly at a place called Pancho's Restaurant in Louisiana. Not a Pizza Hut, as some accounts suggest. That was just a fleeting stop before he eventually made his way to Gainesville.
That's right. By the summer of 1990, Daniel Rowling was living rough. He was hiding in the dense woods surrounding Gainesville, including a homeless camp near SW 34th Street, a shadow poised to unleash terror.
Gainesville, Florida, in August of 1990. You picture this vibrant college town, the air thick with excitement, new students arriving for the fall semester at the University of Florida and Santa Fe Community College.
Young people full of hope and independence settling into their new lives. No one could have imagined the nightmare that was about to unfold.
And the nightmare truly began on August 24th, 1990. Two young women, Sandra Larson, just 18 years old, and Christina Powell, 17, both students at the University of Florida.
They were sharing an off-campus apartment at Williamsburg Apartments, enjoying their last days of summer break before classes officially started.
What happened inside that apartment? It's truly horrifying to contemplate.
Danny Rowling broke in. He brutally raped both women before stabbing them multiple times, ending their young lives.
And his depravity didn't end there.
No, he then posed their bodies in sexually suggestive and degrading positions, a chilling signature he would repeat.
Now, some accounts mention specific details about that scene, like a compact mirror or a note left behind. Can you clarify the accuracy of those?
That's a crucial point. While some stories persist, our fact checks confirm there is no evidence that a compact mirror was placed or that a chilling note was left at the scene.
So those details appear to be later embellishments, part of the public narrative that grew over time.
Exactly. The actual facts are horrifying enough without needing any fictional additions.
The discovery came in the early morning hours of August 26. Family members were increasingly worried. They hadn't heard from Sanja and Christina, so they contacted police.
When authorities entered the apartment, the scene they found was just unimaginable horror. The sheer brutality immediately sent shivers through the law enforcement community.
And as Gainesville woke up that Sunday, the news spread like wildfire. A palpable sense of unease began to settle over the city.
But what no one knew then was that the horror had only just begun. The monster lurking in the shadows was far from finished.
Just hours after the discovery of Sanja Larson and Christina Powell on that same terrifying Sunday, August 26th, the nightmare intensified.
Another young woman, Krista Hoyt, 18, a student at Santa Fe Community College and, disturbingly, a part-time clerk at the Alachua County Sheriff's Office.
She was found murdered in her apartment at Countryside Apartments.
Krista's murder showcased an even more extreme level of depravity. Rowling had raped and murdered her, then decapitated her.
He chillingly placed her head on a bookshelf nearby.
Yes, and her body, like the others, was grotesquely posed. The fact that the killer had escalated so quickly and that one victim even worked for law enforcement, it sent a wave of icy fear through investigators and the entire community.
Krista's body was discovered the following morning, August 27th. Her father and police found her when she failed to show up for work.
The discovery of 3 murders in such quick succession, all bearing similar hallmarks, brutal sexual assault, mutilation confirmed it. Gainesville was dealing with a serial killer, a Ripper.
What kind of psychological profile does this rapid escalation and signature posing suggest?
It points to a highly organized and sadistic killer, someone who gained perverse satisfaction not just from the act of murder, but from asserting ultimate control and defiling the victims posthumously. It's a chilling insight into the profound depravity at play.
And the killing spree wasn't over. The very next day, August 27, 1990, 2 more students, Manuel Taboada, 23, and Tracy Pauls, also 23, both University of Florida students.
They became the killer's final victims in Gainesville. Rowling broke into their ground floor apartment at Gatorwood Apartments.
He brutally stabbed Taboada to death in his own bed. Then he raped and fatally stabbed Tracy Pauls in her bedroom.
Their bodies were discovered on August 28 by Paul's sister and the apartment manager, again after concerned family members couldn't reach them.
The horror was now undeniable. 5 young lives extinguished in just 4 days by an unseen phantom.
The city of Gainesville plunged into chaos. The fear was absolute.
You can almost picture that exodus. Students packing up their entire lives in a matter of hours. It wasn't just fear of a killer. It was the violation of a space that was supposed to be safe.
Absolutely, a place where young lives were just beginning. That sense of trust was shattered.
Students fled the city in droves, abandoning their dorms. Classes at both the University of Florida and Santa Fe College were virtually deserted.
Residents armed themselves, double-locked their doors. A pervasive sense of terror grouped every street, every home. Gainesville had become a city under siege by an unseen monster.
In the aftermath of the 5 horrific murders, Gainesville became the epicenter of an unprecedented manhunt. Law enforcement agencies at every level, local, state, federal, converged.
They formed a massive task force to find the killer who had earned the terrifying moniker, the Gainesville Ripper. The pressure was immense.
Every lead was pursued, every tip scrutinized, but the investigation was plagued by false starts. Unfortunate misdirections.
One of the most infamous was the composite sketch released by police on September 7, 1990. While intended to help, this sketch tragically resembled Ed Humphrey.
A local man with a history of mental illness and facial scars.
Yes. It's hard to imagine the confusion that caused, and the impact on Ed Humphrey himself.
What does a situation like that, a misleading sketch becoming public, tell us about the challenges of high-pressure investigations?
It highlights the immense pressure on law enforcement to provide answers, and how readily the public can latch on to any visual representation, even a flawed one.
Humphrey became a lightning rod for media attention and public suspicion. He was hounded, wrongfully accused in the press.
And despite police knowing he was not their prime suspect, the public perception persisted. It's critical to understand. Police had no sketch of Danny Rowling until after his arrest.
So the true breakthrough came from an unlikely source, directly connected to Rowling's own carelessness.
On September 7, 1990, the very same day the misleading Humphrey sketch was released, Rowling attempted to rob a Winn-Dixie grocery store in Gainesville. He was still hiding in the woods nearby.
During the robbery, a store manager set off a flash bomb, injuring Rowling. He fled, but in his haste, he left behind crucial evidence.
His fanny pack, containing his driver's license,
A local resident found the fanny pack with Rowling's ID. Completely unaware of its significance at first, they turned it over to police on September 8th.
At this point, police did interview Rowling about the grocery store incident, but his unkempt appearance didn't immediately align with their existing composite sketches, the ones of Humphrey.
However, that fanny pack, along with other critical pieces of evidence, would soon prove to be the key.
The definitive connection came in November of 1990. DNA evidence collected from the Gainesville crime scenes was matched to Danny Rowling.
This happened while he was in custody in Florida for a different crime.
Correct. For an unrelated bank robbery he'd committed in Ocala back in September. His fingerprints also conclusively matched those found at the Gainesville murder locations. The puzzle pieces finally clicked into place.
And there was another, even more chilling piece of evidence.
A cassette tape. Found during a search of his abandoned campsite after his arrest. On it, Rowling had recorded himself singing a disturbing song titled Mystery Rider.
Openly fantasizing about murder.
Yes. This chilling tape would later be used as evidence of his premeditation and depravity.
This crucial DNA match was further bolstered by an invaluable tip as well.
Indeed. In November 1990, Cindy Jurashich, Rowling's step-cousin, called Crime Stoppers. She revealed details about the Grissom family murders in Shreveport from November 1989.
The crime Rowling had been suspected of, but never tried for.
Exactly. Her information provided critical links between Rowling's past brutality and the Gainesville spree, solidifying the case against him. The terrifying Phantom of Gainesville finally had a name.
After his apprehension and the undeniable DNA evidence linking him to the Gainesville horrors, Danny Rowling was extradited to Florida in 1994. He faced charges for the 5 murders.
The public expected a lengthy trial, a chance for justice to be meted out in full view.
But in a truly shocking turn of events on February 15, 1994, Danny Rowling defied expectations.
He pleaded guilty to all 5 counts of first-degree murder, as well as 3 counts of sexual battery with a weapon and 2 counts of armed burglary.
He simply stated he wanted to get it over with, avoiding what would have undoubtedly been a massive and painful trial for the victims' families.
During this period, Rowling made some strange claims. He said he committed the murders while under the influence of an alternate personality he called Gemini.
And he even bizarrely claimed this alter ego was inspired by the horror film The Exorcist.
As an expert, what does a claim like that tell us? The invocation of an alter ego, inspiration from a movie.
It's often seen as a defense tactic, though usually not legally effective. Or perhaps a psychological coping mechanism for some offenders, an attempt to externalize the blame.
It suggests a desire to distance oneself from the horrific acts, perhaps in a delusional or manipulative way. But it did little to sway the court or public opinion.
On March 30th, 1994, a jury recommended the death penalty for Danny Rowling.
And on April 20, 1994, Judge Stan R. Morris formally sentenced him to death for the 5 brutal murders he committed in Gainesville.
Years passed then, filled with appeals and legal wrangling.
But justice, though delayed, would eventually come. In 2006, as his final appeals were exhausted, Rowling made one last chilling confession.
He finally admitted to the Grissom family murders, back in Shreveport from 1989.
Yes, the very crimes he was suspected of before the Gainesville spree, but had never faced charges for.
On October 25, 2006, at the age of 52, Daniel Harold Rowling was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison. Reports indicate he sang a hymn before the execution began.
The Gainesville Ripper left an indelible scar on the city of Gainesville and on the lives of countless individuals.
The victims, Sonja Larson, Christina Powell, Krista Hoyt, Manuel Taboda, and Tracy Pauls, forever remembered as promising young lives senselessly cut short by an incomprehensible evil.
And beyond the direct victims, Rowling's crimes resonated far wider. The chilling precision of his attacks, the violation of safe spaces, the sheer terror he inspired.
It directly contributed to the creation of one of cinema's most iconic horror villains.
Screenwriter Kevin Williamson explicitly based elements of his screenplay for the film Scream, the 1996 movie, on the Gainesville murders,
transforming the real-life fear of a campus killer into the fictional terror of Ghostface.
This horrifying truth really underscores how real-life nightmares can permeate our culture.
The case of Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper, stands as a chilling testament to the darkest corners of human depravity. It's a story of a monster unleashed, a community traumatized,
and a legacy that continues to haunt, reminding us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are all too real.
We hope this exploration shed light on a dark chapter. If you found this analysis compelling, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more true crime timelines like this one.
And leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. We do read every one.
Thank you for joining us.
Good night.